My wife betrayed me with her twin brother, then staged a fake robbery to steal our $500, $0 inheritance amidst our divorce. Now I'm drowning in legal battles and she's claiming I owe her millions for emotional damages. I never thought I'd be the guy to get like this. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about my wife, Lisa. We'd been together for almost 10 years, married for 5. She was the kind of woman who seemed perfect, beautiful, smart, confident. We had money, a nice house, a good life, or so I thought. But everything changed in a matter of weeks, and the moment I look back on, I realize I was blind to so many signs. It all started with small things. Lisa began coming home later than usual, claiming she was working late at the office. She'd get defensive if I asked questions, brushing it off with those bitchy little smirks, telling me I was just paranoid. But I wasn't paranoid. I noticed her phone was always glued to her hand, and she'd hide it whenever I came close. She'd delete texts, turn her screen away, and suddenly her phone was her most guarded possession. I never thought much of it. Women are secretive, I told myself. But then small things turned into big things. One night I was cleaning up the living room after dinner and I found a lipstick stain on her pillow that wasn't mine. Not a big deal, right? Except Lisa's a terrible liar and she'd been acting weird for days. I decided to look through her phone when she was out. I didn't want to do it, but I was getting suspicious. I knew something was off. Her messages were filled with flirty emojis, and I saw her texting someone named Mike constantly. The conversations weren't explicitly dirty, but they were flirtatious enough to make my stomach turn. Then I found a picture, just a selfie of her, half naked with her lipstick smudged, sent to Mike. My heart sank. I didn't even know what to feel first: anger, betrayal, heartbreak. I stared at that picture for what felt like hours, trying to process how my wife, the woman I loved and trusted, could do this to me. It was like a punch to the gut. I felt sick. All the signs had been there, but I'd chosen to ignore them. Now I couldn't unsee it. That night I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew it wouldn't be simple. Lisa was the kind of woman who could lie with a smile on her face, deny everything, and make you doubt your own judgment. I'd seen it before. She was good at twisting facts, lying her way out of anything. Still, I couldn't just pretend I hadn't seen the evidence. The next morning, I decided I'd confront her. I was angry, yes, but mostly hurt. I wanted to hear her explain herself, to see if she'd admit to anything. I called her at work and told her I needed to talk. When she came home that evening, I was waiting in the living room, my arms crossed, ready to face her. The look on her face when she saw me was priceless. She knew she'd been caught. "Lisa," I started, voice trembling with a mix of fury and disappointment. "What the hell is going on? I saw the pictures. I know about Mike." She froze, then quickly put on that fake innocent look, the one she always used when she was lying. "What are you talking about? You're crazy. You've always been paranoid. I don't know what pictures you saw," but I cut her off. "Don't lie to me. I saw the texts, the selfies. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes flickered and she shrugged, trying to act like it was nothing. "It's just sex, okay? Just sex. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I was stressed and Mike was there and we just did it. It doesn't mean anything. You're overreacting." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was lying, spinning a web of bullshit, and I was falling right into it. The betrayal hit me hard. It wasn't just that she cheated. It was how she lied, how she dismissed my feelings, how she made me feel like I was losing my mind. I felt a mix of rage and sadness I'd never experienced before. That moment marked the beginning of everything falling apart. I knew I couldn't stay in that house, pretending everything was okay. I had to think, to plan. But mostly, I was hurt beyond words. After that confrontation, my mind was a mess. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and everywhere I looked I saw her face, smirking, lying, pretending she hadn't just shattered everything we built. I kept replaying the moment in my head, trying to make sense of how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to what was happening right under my nose. It was like I'd been living in a fog, and now that I was awake, I couldn't believe I'd been so stupid. I started digging deeper, going through her texts, her emails, her social media. I wanted every detail: what she'd said, who she'd been with, how long it had been going on. It turned out she'd been sneaking around for months, possibly longer. She had a whole secret life I never even suspected. And the worst part, she was so good at hiding it, covering her tracks, lying with that bitchy smirk, making me doubt myself. One thing that really hit me hard was her constant claims that she loved me, that it was just a mistake, that she didn't want to hurt me. Yeah, right. She told me she was confused, that she needed space, that she'd never cheat on me intentionally. But I knew better now. I saw the messages, how she called Mike her, how she'd meet him late at night, how they'd planned secret getaways. It was obvious she'd been planning this for a while, just waiting for the right moment to drop the bomb on me. I felt like I was drowning. My mind kept jumping from anger to despair. I was furious at her for betraying me, but I was also devastated. I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, my money, and she'd just thrown it all away for some cheap sex and a thrill. And to make it worse, she started throwing around stories about how I owed her emotional damages, claiming I was abusive and that I'd ruined her life. That was her new tactic: distort reality and try to make me the villain. I knew I had to do something, not just for myself, but for our shared life, for the money we'd worked so hard to accumulate. I remembered the inheritance, our $500, $0, that I'd planned to invest to secure our future. But now everything was in chaos. She was claiming she deserved a big chunk of that money because of emotional damages she suffered, which was total bullshit. I wasn't going to let her take what wasn't hers, especially not after what she'd done. I started talking to a lawyer, trying to get my head around what I could do legally. The more I read, the angrier I got. She'd staged a fake robbery to steal our inheritance during our divorce, trying to make it look like I was the bad guy. She'd even gone so far as to accuse me of abuse, trying to leverage the courts against me. It was a nightmare, and I realized I had to fight back hard. Meanwhile, Lisa was still acting like everything was normal, smiling, pretending she was innocent, throwing tantrums when I questioned her. She'd lie about where she was, who she was with, what she was doing. She'd call me paranoid, accuse me of stalking her, and say I was ruining her life. But I knew better. I saw through her bullshit now. She was clever, but I wasn't going to let her win. One day, I caught her trying to take some of our money from the joint account. She was transferring funds to some unknown account, claiming she needed it for legal expenses in the divorce. I knew she was lying. She was planning something. I immediately froze the account and contacted my lawyer. That was the moment I realized she was willing to go to any lengths to get what she wanted. All of this chaos was tearing me apart. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I couldn't believe I'd trusted her for so long. And now I was facing a legal battle that seemed endless. She was claiming I owed her millions for emotional damages. And somehow, she was winning sympathy from people who didn't even know what she'd done. It was like she'd turned into a victim overnight, and I was the villain. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I knew I had to stay strong, stay focused. This was only the beginning of a long fight, and I was determined not to let her destroy me financially or emotionally. I'd been, yes, but I was also angry enough to fight for everything I had. The betrayal was deep, but I refused to let her steal my future. The more I delved into her lies, the clearer it became that Lisa wasn't just cheating on me. She was orchestrating an entire scheme to bleed me dry and walk away with everything. The fake robbery she staged during our divorce was the final piece of her twisted plan. She'd somehow convinced the court that I was an unstable, abusive husband, and that she needed protection and compensation. All the while, she was secretly funneling money into her own accounts, planning her escape with her twin brother, Mark. Yes, Mark. It's a sick twist, but I found out he was involved too. I never trusted him, always thought he was a little too eager to hang around Lisa, but I never suspected he'd betray me like this. Turns out, they'd been scheming together for months. Lisa would meet with Mark late at night, secret meetings, clandestine phone calls. I found messages where she called him her partner in crime, and how she'd always thought he was more understanding than me. I couldn't believe my own brother had turned against me, but the evidence was undeniable. One day, I caught Lisa sneaking into our bank's safe deposit box. She had a key, which I'd never given her, but somehow she got her hands on it. I decided to follow her just to see what she was up to. She went into the bank, met with a man I didn't recognize, and handed over a thick envelope. When she left, I snuck inside and looked through the contents. It was a bunch of documents, bank statements, fake IDs, and a large sum of cash she'd hidden away. She was planning to disappear, and the fake robbery was just her cover story. I was furious. I knew I had to act fast before she pulled off her plan. I contacted my lawyer again and told him everything. We drafted a motion to freeze her accounts and prevent her from transferring any more money. I also subpoenaed the bank to get access to the deposit box. Meanwhile, I started gathering evidence, screenshots of her texts, photos, bank statements, everything I could find. I wanted to make sure I had a solid case because I knew she'd lie her way out of everything. Her next move was to try to turn the court against me. She filed a claim that I owed her millions for emotional damages, which honestly made me sick. She claimed I was verbally abusive, manipulative, and that I'd destroyed her self-esteem. It was all lies, just her way of trying to get a bigger settlement. She even managed to get a temporary restraining order against me, claiming I was a threat to her safety. The court bought it, at least temporarily, and I was ordered to stay away from her. That was a blow. I felt powerless, like I was losing everything I'd worked so hard for, but I refused to give up. I knew I had to fight her lies to prove she was the one orchestrating this entire scheme. I hired my own lawyer, someone who specialized in financial crimes and fraud. We started building a case, showing her pattern of deception, her secret meetings, her attempts to steal our inheritance, and her lies about me. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior got more erratic. She'd show up at the house, screaming, crying, accusing me of ruining her life. She'd throw tantrums, call friends and family, trying to turn everyone against me. She'd lie about where she was, who she was with, even to our own relatives. It was like watching a woman unravel, and I felt a mix of anger, disgust, and heartbreak. How did she go from the woman I loved to this manipulative, lying thief? The most shocking moment came when I found out she'd already transferred a significant amount of our inheritance into her brother's account. Mark had been helping her all along, taking a cut for himself. It was like betrayal on top of betrayal. I confronted Lisa about it, and she just smirked, telling me she deserved every penny because I abused her emotionally and made her suffer. That was her go-to lie now, turning her crimes into some kind of victimhood. Every day felt like a battle. I was fighting not just for my money but for my reputation and sanity. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all this, how I'd been so blind to her manipulations, but I also knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to stay strong, stay focused. I had to prove her lies, her schemes, her betrayal. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and angry as hell. But I also knew that I couldn't let her win. Not like this. I had to see this through, no matter how ugly it got. The truth was coming out, and I was going to make sure she paid for what she did, one way or another. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about justice, and I was determined to get it. The legal battle was turning into a nightmare. Every day brought new surprises, new lies from Lisa, and more evidence stacking against her. I spent countless hours poring over documents, recordings, and bank statements. I had to stay sharp because she was relentless, lying, twisting facts, and trying to manipulate everyone involved. Her accusations of abuse and emotional damages were just her latest tactics to sway the court, but I knew I had to fight back with facts and proof. One of the most shocking moments was discovering that she had already transferred a large chunk of our inheritance into her brother Mark's account. I found transaction records showing she'd moved hundreds of thousands of dollars without my knowledge. I confronted her about it, and she just shrugged, saying it was for her future. I couldn't believe she'd already spent our money on her escape plan, and I felt a deep sense of betrayal. That money was supposed to secure our future, and now she was using it to run away from her lies. I decided to confront her directly again, but this time with my lawyer present. The day she showed up at the house, I was ready. She had that fake innocent look, trying to act like everything was normal. I told her I knew about the transfers, about her meetings with Mark, and her fake robbery scheme. Her face twisted into that bitchy smirk she always used when she thought she was winning. Her words were full of lies. She claimed she was just trying to protect herself, that I'd been emotionally abusive and that she deserved everything she was taking. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her she was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. I told her I had enough evidence to destroy her, and I was going to do just that. That's when she started crying, fake tears streaming down her face, claiming she was the victim, that I had ruined her life. I couldn't stand her acting like she was the one suffering when she was the one who'd caused all of this. The court hearings were brutal. Lisa's lawyer played her victim card hard, claiming I was an emotionally abusive monster who'd made her suffer for years. Meanwhile, I had all the proof of her lies, her secret meetings, her thefts, and her attempts to frame me. The judge was skeptical at first, but as the evidence piled up, it became clear who was really at fault. Still, Lisa was clever. She kept twisting her stories, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation, that I was jealous, that I was just insecure. Despite her antics, I managed to get a temporary restraining order against her after she showed up at my workplace, crying and yelling. I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation, but I had to protect myself. I also filed for full custody of our assets and demanded a forensic audit of our accounts. I wanted the truth out there, and I wanted her held accountable for her actions. All the while, I was drowning in legal bills and stress. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle, but I refused to give up. Every day, I woke up with a new purpose: to expose her lies, to protect what was mine, and to stop her from destroying me financially and emotionally. I knew she was still scheming, still trying to find loopholes, still trying to turn people against me. One night, I found her on the phone with her sister, talking about how she was going to win everything and leave him with nothing. That was the moment I realized she'd gone completely off the rails. She wasn't just cheating anymore. She was orchestrating a full-blown war. I had to be prepared for anything. I also learned from my lawyer that she'd been planning to claim emotional damages for months, trying to squeeze millions out of me in settlement. It was a sick game, and I knew I had to stay one step ahead. I started documenting everything, every lie, every manipulation, every shady transaction. I was determined to turn the tide, to make sure she paid for her betrayal. It was exhausting, and I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew the truth, and I knew I had to fight for it. I was done trusting her, done being the passive victim. This was a war, and I was ready to win, even if it meant tearing everything apart to do it. I just wanted justice, to reclaim what she'd stolen and finally put an end to her lies. By this point, I was deep into the fight, and every day felt like walking a tightrope. Lisa's lies had become more elaborate. She was claiming I'd physically threatened her, that I was trying to isolate her from her family, all to paint herself as the innocent victim. It was disgusting how she twisted everything to serve her own ends. Meanwhile, I was gathering evidence, recordings of her phone calls, emails, even witness statements from people who'd seen her sneaking around with Mark or lying about her whereabouts. Her biggest mistake was pushing too hard, thinking she could manipulate the system into giving her what she wanted. She hired her own team of lawyers, and they started filing motions to drag things out, trying to delay the court proceedings. She accused me of harassment, of stalking her, even of domestic violence. All lies, but they seemed to work for a while, because the court granted her a more restrictive order. For a guy who just wanted justice, it was infuriating to be kept away from everything, especially when I knew she was the one scheming behind the scenes. One day, I finally got a break. The forensic audit of our bank accounts was completed, and the results were damning. Lisa had transferred hundreds of thousands of dollars into her brother's account, and there were suspicious transactions she'd made just before I caught her in the act. It was clear she'd been planning her escape for months. Seeing that report, I felt a surge of rage. This wasn't just betrayal. It was outright theft. I met with my lawyer and laid out the evidence. We prepared to file a lawsuit for fraud and breach of trust. I also demanded full restitution of all stolen funds, plus punitive damages. The plan was to hit her where it hurt, the finances, and to get her held accountable for the lies and illegal activity she'd been involved in. I knew she'd fight dirty, but I was ready for it. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, trying to sway friends and family against me. She'd call my boss, trying to paint me as an abusive monster, claiming I'd been controlling and violent. She even staged scenes where she'd cry and scream, trying to garner sympathy. But I had recordings of her threatening me, and I made sure my lawyer had everything documented. I wasn't going down without a fight. The courtroom battles were relentless. Lisa's lawyers pushed for a settlement, offering her a compromise if she dropped the accusations. But I refused. I wanted justice, not a quick payout. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, especially for trying to steal our inheritance and manipulate the court system. I also brought forward witnesses who could testify about her manipulative behavior and her attempts to isolate me. The most surreal moment was when Lisa claimed I had emotionally damaged her so badly that she needed millions in damages. My lawyer and I presented all the evidence: her lies, her thefts, her secret meetings, her attempts to frame me. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning. I felt a strange mix of hope and dread, knowing this could finally be the turning point. And then the shocking happened. The judge ruled in my favor. She ordered Lisa to pay back every penny stolen, plus damages for her fraudulent behavior. The court also lifted her restraining order, allowing me to regain some stability. I felt a wave of relief mixed with exhaustion. It wasn't over yet, but I knew I was finally getting some justice. Looking back now, I realize how much this experience changed me. I learned that trust can be shattered in an instant, and that the only way to survive betrayal is to fight back with everything you've got. Lisa's lies, manipulations, and schemes tried to destroy me, but I refused to let her win. I had to stand up for myself, for what was rightfully mine. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone in a similar situation, it would be this: document everything. Never underestimate how far someone will go when they're desperate. And most importantly, don't let betrayal define you. This has been the worst experience of my life, but it's also taught me a hard lesson about resilience and justice. I'm still healing, but I finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now that everything's settled, at least legally, I find myself sitting in what's left of my old life, trying to piece it back together. The court's decision didn't erase the pain, but it gave me some closure. Lisa's schemes, her lies, her manipulations, they all unraveled in the end. The inheritance she tried to steal, the fake robbery she staged, the lies about emotional damages, all exposed, all punished. But the scars remain. Looking back, I realize how dangerous it is to trust someone blindly, especially when money and emotions are involved. Lisa was charming, bitchy, and manipulative. She lied her way into a corner she couldn't escape from. I was naive to think I knew her completely. Now I see that sometimes the people closest to you can turn into the biggest enemies when greed and betrayal come into play. The experience has made me more cautious, more guarded. I've learned to value transparency and honesty, even if it means losing some illusions about love and trust. I've also become more aware of how greed can corrupt people, making them do things they'd normally never consider. I've realized that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to fight back hard and never let anyone take more than they deserve. As for Lisa, I hear she's trying to rebuild her life, but I doubt she'll ever truly escape the damage she caused. The court records, the evidence, the witnesses, those are forever. I hope she learns that deception and betrayal only lead to destruction, and that no amount of lying can hide the truth forever. For me, this ordeal has been a brutal lesson in resilience. It's tested my strength, my patience, and my sense of justice. I've lost a lot: trust, money, peace of mind, but I've gained clarity. I know now that I have to be more careful, more skeptical, and more prepared for the unexpected. If I could say one thing to anyone reading this, it's this: never let your guard down. Keep your eyes open, your documents safe, and your heart guarded. Because betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and when it does, you need to be ready to fight for what's rightfully yours. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to restore. But even in the darkest moments, there's a chance for justice, for healing, and for a new beginning. I'm still healing, Still moving forward, but I do it with a sharper eye and a stronger spirit. Life threw me a brutal lesson, one I never wanted to learn, but I'm grateful I fought through it. Because in the end, the truth always comes out, and no matter how deep the betrayal, justice will find its way.